Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and to the second episode of Here and How. Today I will be talking to Raksha Phadke, who is a stylist, a fashion consultant, and also runs her own brand called the Closet Coach Company. They offer lifestyle services that help us all discover our personal style aesthetic with a little bit of love. So let's go on and hear from Raksha. Hey Raksha!
Hey.
Welcome to Here and How, to episode 2. That's what we're calling it. I have established. And I'm so happy you could make it. I know that there have been a lot of issues which we will never talk about, which have happened. But thank you for making it in the morning.
Always glad to talk to you 2 mornings in a row.
Many of you don't know, for the viewers who are watching, maybe you're seeing Raksha here for the first time, but many of you may not know that she grew up being a professional golfer. So she has played golf through like her childhood. She played for India and then she played internationally. And now she is actually a brand owner, business owner, and a fashion stylist, and a lot more. So how did that transition happen? Like, were you always interested in fashion? How did what prompted you to start Closet Coach Company?
So basically, I studied fashion in school. So I wasn't always drawn to fashion per se, but I really liked, say, colors or visual aesthetics of things, and I didn't know how to kind of translate that into my work. But so I actually went to college with a psychology degree, and like you said, I went primarily for golf and to turn professional. And while I was doing my degree there, I figured that my university was number 3 in the world in its fashion school. So I was really intrigued, and I kind of went to see the university. I went to see the college, and it was just amazing. I saw the history of fashion, it's a museum, and that was what actually got me into changing my major from psychology to fashion merchandising. So that's where I have my undergrad degree, and I have a minor in business administration. So the styling part came together a lot later, but that was my start.
Okay, awesome. And so what is Closet Coach Company? If you could just tell whoever's watching a little bit about what it is, what kind of services you guys offer. And of course, I'll be putting all the information here, but just to know from you, because you are like the brains behind it.
So basically, what we are is we offer lifestyle services. So based on 2 very scientific pillars, which is color theory and body ratios. That's kind of what we work off of for all our clients. So what we do is personal styling. I do corporate styling. We do editorial styling. We have wardrobe revamps, and honestly, each client is different. Like I really pride myself on having personal relationships with all my clients, and not just for a one-time thing, for an extended period of time. So that's another thing about Closet Coach, is that we make you feel comfortable in the space that you are, because dressing is such a personal kind of thing that unless you're comfortable, you're not really going to get anywhere or grow. So that's another part of Closet Coach companies. I like meeting people personally. I like knowing about their lives, the story, what makes them tick, and that's how we take it forward. It's not simply about what's trending. I really don't care much about what's trending. It's more about the people that I work with.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's important. I mean, of course, and like you said, styling is such an integral part of who you are and how you present yourself to the world. Okay, so you spoke a little bit about what you do. Let's kind of jump into the business aspect of it, because not too many people talk about it. They don't talk about money. And especially, I think in India, people just kind of shy away from talking about this. Starting this in Pune, it's such a different crowd. It's very distinctive from, say, Bombay or Delhi or Calcutta, Bangalore, anywhere. How was that for you? How was it different? And what were like the challenges that you faced, which were place specific?
I think Pune actually has a lot of potential, basically because it is the educational hub in Maharashtra. Like, we have people from all over the country coming to study in Pune. So our crowd as such is really young. So it surprises me that Mumbai is a little more open about trying new things, or it's more accepted. Whereas I feel like Pune has been limited to just the shadi sector, or
Yeah.
just like Diwali, or this very traditional dressing styles that have been comfortable around the city, mainly because initially it was a city for the retired people. Like
Right.
Pune started off as being a hub for all the retirees to go and stay and live comfortably, and then it translated into being an educational hub. So I think
Correct.
times have changed and we have to change with them.
Definitely.
As far as launching the business in Pune, it was definitely a lot harder. You don't have a lot of enthusiastic people here, but there are a few. Not that there aren't at all, but yeah, I mean, I got a question. We used to get questions like, what are you gonna do here? Like everything is so in Mumbai. But I think I'm more of the thought that I can bring that to Pune. Like I have the resources, and I think I have the business set in a way that I can bring that to Pune.
Have you gotten that a lot? Like, why does anyone need a stylist? And do people ask you these questions, or do people, like, even within the family? I'm sure you got a lot of like backlash about what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, I get that quite often. Everyone's like, I know how to dress and I know what fits me the best. So why do I need you? And honestly, that's such a valid question, because I would say the same thing if I was going to a stylist. Like, I know how to dress myself. Why do I need you? But again, I tell my clients that yes, you do know how to dress yourself, because we are visual beings. So naturally, when you look at yourself in something, you will be able to tell if it suits you or doesn't suit you, because we are visual beings. You already have that ability inside you to make those decisions. Where I come in is just to kind of fine tune your aesthetic, because I have the background and the scientific study to back up what I'm seeing.
Correct.
So it's not like I'm looking at trends and being like, oh, ye pehno, aaj this is in style. It's more about what you like, and let's like tune it to fit you and make you feel comfortable in the best version of yourself.
Right.
And almost like I want to be a sounding board for my clients. I come from a no judgment space. Like whatever you want to say, just say it to me, and I'll give you a very very honest feedback with just
Okay.
no agendas.
Yeah. Okay. That's lovely. I mean, it's so important to make them feel comfortable, because that's such a big part of
Right,
what you do, and for it to then work out. Because I'm sure there are like
right.
so many skeptics around. I'm sure I know so many people like that as well. How did you plan for this? How much earlier, before you started Closet Coach, did you account for, okay, I want to keep this much money aside? Or how did you plan for contingencies? What was like your safety net like? So if you could just run us through a little bit of that.
Right. So the first thing was that right out of college, I got a job with a sports management agency. So I worked with them for a year, and this was really good job because I'd already done this process. It's basically where we connect athletes in India to coaches in America to get them sports scholarships. So this is a process that I'd gone through myself. So this was a pretty easy job for me to do, and I love helping kids, especially like passionate sports people. So that's what I did for 1 year, and that gave me enough to kind of just save and start Closet Coach. But again, with the way my business is, I don't have a lot of overhead costs, or I didn't back then. I didn't have a lot of expenditure back then, and it was mainly about just building your network and making it work. Another thing with Closet Coach is I didn't have set goals like I want to be successful in 3 months, and in 5 months I should have a set amount of clients. Like I didn't put myself through that. Again, because I didn't know what waters I was navigating, starting a styling team in Pune. So I didn't want to start off too ambitious. Just give myself the time to take in opportunities in case I was presented with any. So in between working with Closet Coach, I worked with Anita Dongre for 3 months, and that at that point I left my business for 3 months just in Pune, and I went to work because it was going to add to my business later.
Correct. Correct.
So in that sense, with regards to a safety net, I was lucky because I don't have any added expenditure, and also because the business is set in a way where I don't incur expenses unless I have a client base, and if I have a client base, that means I have money incoming.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that kind of balances it out.
So you can then allocate how much ever you want
Right.
to save and put. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I've seen you through the years, and we, for the viewers, we've kind of grown up together in a way because we've known each other since we were 16, since college, and both of us looked very different then, and we dressed very different then as well. Uh, but I've seen you through the years, and I know you've been through major changes in, you know, the way you look, your body image, and I've seen your styling also evolve. So how can you run us through that journey? How did that change the choices you made when you dressed yourself?
All right. So when we met, I was like the quintessential athlete who didn't wear anything except sports clothes.
Yes.
So that's where I was at that point. And I actually started my fashion journey with experimenting with my sports clothes. So I used to get a lot of slack back then from my sports peers that, why are you spending so much time on your clothes? Like, you don't need it. And I used to go all out. I used to like match my cap with my shoes and all.
And you used to like be really particular about your nails and everything. I remember that.
Yeah, my nails had to be the same color. Like, I was really particular about my outfit. But yeah, that's how it started, and then it progressed into basically I went through 4 years where I had very severe PCOD. So I put on about 25 to 50 kilos in those 4 years, and it was a big change for me. From someone who used to live in shorts and skirts, I went to living in black leggings because I was made to believe that it would make me look slimmer and trimmer. But yeah, and then I'm sure you remember, but I had years of only wearing black
Black
leggings.
leggings. That was it.
And
Maybe
change whatever.
all of us owned like 6 or 7 pairs of black leggings, which we
Yeah, easily. So yeah, so I went through 4 years of that, and I guess that got me thinking about how insecurities just play into you through 500 different ways. Like I'm sorry for deviating, but I remember a New Year's where you were feeling so bummed, and I was just like, no, you're coming with me.
I
And
refused to go out only because I felt big and massive, and I was saying such mean and horrible things about myself. And I mean, who like pulled me out of the house literally. Like she came over with a dress. She made me wear it. She made me put some makeup on it. She was like, "We are going."
now. It was such a fun New Year's.
It was.
But yeah, so that kind of opened my eyes to a bunch of different things that people might be going through because I was going through them. I had plenty of people come up to me and ask me if I ate my own body. I had people telling me that I don't look like a sportsman, and it was really. And now that I think about it, it was funny, but it definitely affected me and what I did then. And then I lost that weight again in the last 3 years. So now I've gone from wearing black leggings continuously, having body image issues, to losing that weight but still having body image issues.
Correct.
But then changing my dressing sense a little bit because I can, because society allows me.
Right.
Because the magazine says okay. So it's definitely been a journey, and I think most of my styling experience before Closet Coach comes from styling my own body. So
Yeah.
because I've been through, I think, almost 8 to 9 different sizes, top and bottom.
Right. Right. Do you think that opened your sense of, the kind of problems and obstacles that people who maybe have a slightly unconventional body type, which is not conventionally pretty or beautiful, do you think that opened the way that you look at people who, suffer from low body image and how to style themselves?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one aspect of it. Is like, now I know where people come from. But another aspect of it was how brands and how media brainwashes you to think a certain way. Like, it just opened my mind because that's when I realized how sizing works brand to brand. It's so different. There's no standard sizing. And it's literally for the brand, like, it's an attraction point for the customers. Like, come back to me, you're a size 2 in my store. Come back to me, you're a size 4 in my store.
I remember, I think it was Old Navy, but they used to do vanity sizing. And I remember going there when I was pretty fit, I suppose, and slim, if you can call it that. And I was like, what? I am a size like 1 or 2. And I was losing my mind. And then I realized that it was just about vanity sizing, it wasn't the actual thing. Okay, so like you said, now since the way that you dress and present yourself to the world, it forms such a big part of your personality, and it's also of course a result of our personality. What is your approach like when you're trying to figure out what will work for a client, keeping in mind what biases they come from, and how do you make them feel comfy pushing the boundaries when sometimes you can see something that will work for them but they may not be able to see it themselves?
Right. So basically, I'll walk you through a consultation so that'll be easier.
Yeah.
So what happens is a client will get in touch with me. They'll say, I require services, but I don't know exactly what I need, but I know I need something. That's generally how it starts off, because not everybody really knows what aspect they require of styling, because you don't always need everything. So then what happens is they'll come into my office, we'll sit down on have a consultation face to face, and that's always helpful because they get to read my body language, I get to read their body language, and that's just kind of like a comfort factor that comes into this. And with terms of things that are outside their comfort zone, I would definitely touch on those topics because that's what I believe as a professional will work for them. So although it might be out of their comfort zone, it's my responsibility and my duty to tell them that this is how it is. And of course, I have like factual data backing up what I'm saying. Like I'm not just saying things out in thin air. So that's always there. But when it comes to actually, say, physically going shopping or trying something different, I always tell them to bring a family member or somebody who's close to them, or a best friend, or just somebody else to make that trip a little more comfortable and more fun and more exciting. So we actually had a 50-year-old lady come in, and she was so hesitant to try anything new. Although I knew that it would really suit her, so I asked her to bring her daughter along for the shopping trip. And her daughter came, and she was so enthusiastic, and it changed the whole mood of the shopping.
Like trying on clothes, like for a long time, for many years, was just like I used to dread it to go into the try, especially like jeans. I think that is like the worst thing. But that's amazing. I mean, to have someone who's just like there to be your cheerleader and tell you very honestly what is working. In terms of your clients, in terms of like the feedback that has come from your clients, how has that been? Have you had like difficult clients who you had to really convince about certain things? What do you think your clients' biggest takeaways were from working with you, and what were your learnings from working with them?
So one of my biggest learnings from working with the clients is that they want client confidentiality first. So a lot of them actually told me not to tell anybody or not to post anything out there saying that they came to me, because it's almost like going to a therapist. So that was one takeaway that was very, very big for me. It's like, oh, that's how people see a stylist. But that's fine. Again, it's a personal opinion. In terms of difficult clients, we actually had a girl whose mom forced her to come to us. So obviously she didn't like anything that we were saying, and she didn't want to be there again. That's another big thing. Is if you don't want to be there, you're not going to enjoy the process. You're not going to really take in anything. And of course, if someone is forcing you, you're definitely not going to want to be there. But in terms of difficult clients, these are the two main things that I see with a lot of clients that are difficult. In terms of easier clients and how the feedback has been, they really appreciate that I'm on point with my communication. They appreciate the relationship that I build with them. It's not like hey, you come to me for one consult and you pay me and that's over. Like I prefer extending that relationship where I'm like, okay, if you're shopping and you like something but you're not sure, just send a picture to me. Like I'll tell you if it's fine. So I almost want to be their friend, and I want to definitely be there in their lives for a long period of time. So that's a feedback I get very often, is they really appreciate that aspect.
Yeah, that's so important though. Like if you're available even a few months from like your consultations, because it's difficult to get used to this new, like wardrobe pretty much, or way of doing things. So it's nice to have someone hold your hand for a little while at least before you can make your own choices 100%.
And I just tell them, like, how you would send your friend a picture saying, hey, should I buy this? Hey, is this cute? It's just the same thing, except that I have experience in the field. So it's a little more in tune to what will work for you.
Right, right. So you were telling me a little bit about basing a lot of your consultation and your research on color theory and a lot of these design concepts. So if you could just
Right.
talk to me a little bit about that, because I have a lot of designers and young artists following me. So it'll be nice to see how you can correlate what you do at work to how you dress.
So actually, as you're aware, like we have a lot of influence trickle down from the West. The Western influence is very big and very common. So mainly the colors. Say, and I'm going to give you a very like pointed example. Let's say lipsticks. What was in say in 2012 or 2011 was what Britney Spears was doing with the baby pink,
Yeah.
and that was like everywhere, all over magazines, all over social media. Every people in India wanted to do it.
Yeah.
When people in India did it with that color, they looked like a fool because
Yeah.
that color does not complement our skin tone. It doesn't complement the undertone that we have to our skin
Correct.
versus what she has. But there are pinks that do that. You know, it's not that pink, but there are different pinks that will complement an olive skin tone, that will complement a warm skin tone.
Right.
And that's where I do color theory, is where I first identify the client's skin tone, the tendency of how it changes in the sun. There's a few different things to identify. Then, based on what colors they already like, I give them different hues and different shades to pick from that will suit them. And this especially is important when it comes to makeup and lipsticks, because that really ties a whole look together. Like for example, we saw Aishwarya wearing the purple lipstick for a red carpet event, and people really hated that. And it wasn't like the purple wouldn't suit her, but that shade of purple
That shade.
does not suit her skin tone.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and in terms of design aesthetics, it's pretty like not basic, but it's basic in terms of how the fabric is cut. For example, like if I've cut a fabric on a bias, it's probably going to make someone appear slimmer because of that bias.
Right.
So it's design elements like that that come into play with what I do.
Right. It's like a play with your eye, essentially. I mean, that's what you're doing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit about was now with circular fashion slowly like gaining a lot of importance, because we live in a world right now which is obsessed with just consumerism, and it's really important for us to be now switching towards more sustainable ways of living. So for a stylist, like often people confuse it to be just you go out and buy stuff for them, or you go out and spend a lot of money. So how do you now approach your clients, and how do you work with that angle, with that circular fashion or sustainability angle?
Right. So one of the services that I offer, which is wardrobe revamps, what we actually do is come in and see your pre-existing closet. We go through the full closet. Obviously, we've done an assessment of how you are as a person before this.
Yeah.
And we give you ways to restyle old pieces of clothing that you like. We give you a list of basic essentials that I feel will completely transform your wardrobe. It could just be 2 or 3 things.
Right.
And we throw away a bunch of pieces. And when I say throw away, I mean that we donate them. Like we are tied up with the organizations, and whenever we do wardrobe revamps, whatever clothes are being discarded are always donated. So definitely, there is a sustainable aspect to styling, because you can, like I said, restyle, rework, customize a lot of your old clothing, and also your dad's clothing, because men's clothes are the best.
The most comfortable clothes ever.
Yeah, they really are. And in terms of buying sustainable or ethical, like if that's what my client is interested in doing, that's the path we take. But if I have a client who's on a tight budget who only wants fast fashion, I'm not here trying to judge saying, hey,
right, of course. Right.
That's what I'll do for you. I mean,
that responsibility does tie in somewhere where maybe you'd make sure that they used whatever pieces you're curating for them for longer, so it doesn't land up in the landfills like the next month. So I think that is perhaps where you bring that in.
Yeah. That way, I think restyling is the most sustainable thing that I offer offer to my clients because you can restyle one piece of clothing probably 10 or 11 times throughout your life and wear it so differently that wardrobe revamps are the most popular because most of the old clothes are restyled and they don't have to spend anything buying new
Correct,
clothes.
correct.
That's a big part of it for sure. But I mean, like, Anu, there are people who just don't care about sustainability and all they care about is the aesthetic and the look of things.
Yeah.
And if they want me to source that 200 rupee gold shirt, I have to source a
Yeah.
200 rupee gold shirt,
Right,
like
right.
I don't have a choice. That's my job. So, although I will advocate always restyling, there's just some people that don't buy into that,
That's true.
and that's not my place to tell them to buy into
Yeah,
that.
I think
So,
that's important to know where you also draw the line between being a stylist and giving your opinion and advice.
yeah,
Okay, so now as a designer, people associate me with a certain design style or a certain aesthetic, and more than often they come to me for that because they've seen my work. But for you, for what you do, it's so personalized with every client. Do you
right.
sometimes feel like you have to really step back and create those boundaries between your personal style preferences and what will actually work for them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always that boundary because firstly, I start off with a blank slate with each client. We have a database where we have very pointed questions to help me get to know the client and her preferences or his preferences better. Through that, then we can start working on what works for them. When it comes to my personal aesthetic, a lot of people actually ask me what my personal aesthetic is. So I think in a way it works the same way. They come to me because they like my personal aesthetic and would like to, in a sense, see it in their dressing as well.
Right.
So some part of that, sure, but most of it I try to tell them to keep it authentic because they're already used to something that they like,
Correct.
and they already have their likes and dislikes. I'm literally here just to kind of fine tune that and put it all together. So,
Right. Okay, so looking at your say audience or people who you've worked with so far and clients, what would you say has been like the most challenging? Because you work with really young people, 15, 16 year olds as well, to like ranging to about like 50, 60 year olds as well. And has it been because styling is something which is considered to be something that is only applicable to women? Has that been like a thing where you have less male clientele because of the stigma associated with it? How has it been with the people you work with?
it's actually really funny. I do have on paper lesser male clients than female clients, but most of like the questions and the intrigue and the wanting to know comes from male like guys. It's really strange because
Wow.
women will directly approach me for a consultation, whereas guys will have 50 questions for me before a consultation. So
Okay.
that is the difference, and there's way more guys with questions than girls with questions, obviously because they're curious. There's a stigma associated that doesn't let them explore that field as much, and they just want to know. So actually, one of the examples I'll give is from our flea, the sister library flea that we had. We actually had this couple come in, and the guy just thought it was hilarious that there was a styling booth there. Okay, he just thought it was so funny. And I think we were like maybe 2 or 3 months into our business at that point. We were fairly new. So it was definitely intimidating, but he walked up to me and he's like, "What do you do, like child? Like go do something essential in your life. Like what are you doing?" So I said, "I will tell you exactly what you do and what kind of a person you are based on what you're wearing now." That's what I told his wife. So
Right.
his wife was very intrigued. She was like, I said, I can tell you exactly what you're, then that's what styling is. He's like, oh, really? Like, okay, let's go, let's tell me. So I told him exactly what he did. I told him he was a gym trainer. I told him that he likes to look good but doesn't like to show that he puts any thought in it.
Right.
There are certain movements, and they actually hired me for a photo shoot the next week.
Wow. That's amazing, dude. But I mean, I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. I remember you were telling me that you have studied like psychology of dressing and why
Right.
people make certain choices, and you can decode their style choices. So how does that work?
Honestly, there's definitely a lot of. It's not just psychology. It has a little to to do with philosophy also, the philosophy and values of that person, the environment that they're in also. That has to be given a lot of importance, especially because as you grow up, your work environment engulfs everything else that you live in. So that sometimes makes you dress a certain way, or you're required to dress a certain way. So there's a lot of telltale signs that do cross my mind when I look at somebody. And of course, like people ask me, like, are you judging people based on what they're wearing? And I'm just like, no, I'm not judging people, but it's just curiosity. Like I build a story around them. And then I wait to talk to them to see if it's real.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Like it's called people watching. That is like a hobby. Okay, so now we know a little bit about what it's been like for you up until now. What is the next, like what lies in the future for Closet Coach Company?
So one of the biggest things that we actually wanted to do this year, but that we're pushing till next year because of the coronavirus, is we are launching our own clothing line. So while we style, we will have some of our own styles to put you guys in. So and they are in tune to my aesthetic. We don't have an overarching aesthetic for this, but I promise it's all fun silhouettes and fun designs. Unfortunately, right now it's only limited to girls, but I will be getting menswear in soon.
That's awesome. This is huge news, and this is the first place you've said this, right?
Yeah.
Exclusive, guys. But that's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm going to hold a lot of stuff from your collection.